My name is Jeff, I am an ESL teacher, and today I'll briefly tell you the love story between English and French. By the way, my main reference here is the book Honi soit qui mal y pense by the famous linguist Henriette Walter. The history between these two languages started almost 1,000 years ago and can be divided into three big periods. During the first period, the Norman French invaded England and imposed their language there. The second period includes the rise of the political and cultural power of France and the French language. And the third period is defined by the rise and the dominance of English. So French and English have enjoyed a long relationship in which each language influenced the other at different points in time. During the first two periods, French had a strong influence over English, but the opposite happened during the third period, which includes today. This interesting story began in 1066, when William the Conqueror defeated the Anglo-Saxons at Hastings and settled in London. The language from French then became the language of the English court and nobility, relegating English to the lower classes. This change was quick and radical because William confiscated the English nobles' titles and possessions to give them to the Normans. This situation prevailed for more than 300 years, that is, until the 100 Years' War between France and England. French then became the language of the enemy, and English regained its position, but it was really a different language due to the big transformation it had gone through. As a comparison, here's an excerpt from Old English followed by an excerpt from Middle English, that is, the English after the Norman occupation.
Ratway gardena in jardagum, theud kuninga trimje prunon, hutha edelinga sellen fremedon.
When that April, with his shouris sorta, the drocht of March hath persed to the rota.
As you can see, English before the Normans was a purely Germanic language, but after 300 years of occupation, tons of French words penetrated English, so much that it became the most Latin of their Germanic languages. In fact, according to some sources, around 10,000 French words were adopted by English during that period, and about 3/4 of them are still in use today. By the way, a lot of English words borrowed from Old French in the Middle Ages didn't keep their original meaning and developed a new meaning that French doesn't have anymore. On the other hand, some meanings stayed the same but changed in French. In several occasions, their form kept traces of Old French, such as the S in cost, pastry, and forest. The common history of French and English seems to stop after the 100 Years' War, but in fact it was just the beginning. But you need to leave the political history of languages and turn towards their internal structure. During the French Renaissance, the prestige of French increased. In 1539, Francis I imposed French as the language of administration in France. During the following century, leading figures such as Henry IV, Cardinal Richelieu, and Louis the Great affirmed and promoted French, which became the language of culture, science, and diplomacy throughout Europe, including England. Thousands of French words continued to flow towards English. By the way, there are currently more than 3,000 words whose spelling and meaning are identical in both languages. Starting from the 1700s, the tendency began reversing. It was now French that felt attracted to English. The phenomenon was called Anglomania. That period is marked by an enthusiasm for science and encyclopedia, and the reference for political, technical, and industrial matters was England. During the 1900s, English vocabulary entered certain domains, such as sport, fashion, travel, commerce, and industry. The Treaty of Versailles, written both in French and English, marked the decline of French as the language of diplomacy. And for the rest of the 20th century, until today, the attraction towards American words have been very strong. Right now, this trend is far from abating, as many English words are commonly used in French. Today, borrowings from English are estimated to be between 5 and 10% of the French lexicon, while 1/3 of English words, directly or indirectly, come from English. Voila, this was a very short summary of the fascinating story of two important languages' mutual influence. Thank you for watching this presentation, and see you soon.